Grand Cherokee means a lot to us. It's an iconic vehicle for us and has a good legend to it. The extension of doing the L was really the challenge, and adding perfect proportions that are contained within Grand Cherokee, the size of it, garageability and all of that, adding wheelbase and adding a third row to it. Of course, being a Jeep, it's going to have certain Jeep elements, including the 7-slot grille and the trapezoidal wheel arches. But also we think about other legendary Jeeps, and the Grand Cherokee has always held a few Grand Wagoneer elements in it. I think this new one has even more of that. Notably the stood up, leaning forward, imposing grille to it, the way that the pillars are defined, and even some of the lamp details. The other element that we picked up from the Wagoneer was this idea of outward visibility being part of the luxury package. So we moved the belt line down, worked hard with the engineering group to make all the pillars a bit slimmer, and opened up the glass expanse. Lighting is key. The exterior lighting is all completely LED. On the door, there's also now a little sculptural American flag. The new vehicle is just as wide as the outgoing car, but the track is wider. So we've pushed the tires out even farther, and they're very flush with the sides of the car. It just, for us, it's been a goal, and it's a more tailored appearance to the vehicle. When we added the third row, the goal was to get it not to be just we squeezed a third row in the back of the vehicle. It had to be a very comfortable third row. I'm happy to say an adult comfortably fits in the third row, and you could go for a long distance in the third row. We have to work very tightly with engineering. It's a team effort. It's not just us doing our design work and throwing it over the wall and going to lunch. There's lots and lots of interaction back and forth. Yes, there are Easter eggs on this vehicle. They are Grand Cherokee appropriate, which is key, so they're not going to be obvious, but I'm still not going to tell you where they're at.
On the interior of the Grand Cherokee L, we wanted to create something that was new and different, moved beyond where today's Grand Cherokee was. There are a lot of things that we put into that. So for example, it's more of a horizontal layout. The instrument panel is structured so that you get a more open feeling of spaciousness. The way the entire instrument panel leans away from you, in a way, also improves the feeling of spaciousness. The combination of the width, which is created by the wing and the mid-bolster, and then the speed created by the center console flowing up into the instrument panel, it creates a unique spatial feeling where the interior is moving around you, but it doesn't feel obtrusive. It feels open and spacious. We're creating a new Jeep family lineup form language, and so this is the first of many vehicles that will share the architectural setup of the instrument panel, and so we wanted to create something that we could adapt to different sizes, different segments, something that would lend itself to having different looks, so different executions, but still feeling like it was in the same family. So you'll see that also in future products, that similar form language and similar execution of details and materials. In the Grand Cherokee L, we really looked at all three rows equally. We wanted to make sure that no matter where you were in the vehicle, you had a nice, comfortable space. So in the third row, we sculpted the seats in such a way that they waterfall, at the bottom cushion, so they're super comfortable for you, no matter your height, your stature. We find when we look through the industry, even luxury car makers sort of forget about the third row, and it's just like this sea of black plastic. But we really wanted to take the time and attention to not only make it comfortable, but to design it in a way where all of the surfaces are soft. All of the nice leather-wrapped parts have beautiful stitching, or the sculptural wood. All of that stuff is there to create this feeling of artisanship. And then we contrast all of those artisan-like elements with the functional items. So the screens and the displays, straight to the point, black glass and metal. It has a very clean, very modern appearance. But then the other functional elements are, all of the storage bins, the door pockets. We really wanted to be able to take these functional items, have them organized, easy for customer use, and then surround those with all of these beautiful elements, the leather, the wood. It's the beauty that you notice first, but we don't take away from any of the functional elements. So they're hidden in plain sight in this piece of art.
The elements of architecture vary throughout the vehicle. You have obviously the powertrain, which is a major element of the architecture. You have the suspension system. You have even the HVAC system. One of the more intricate elements that we have right now is the electrical architecture. And so as we look to take on some of these new advanced systems like night vision, the large displays, the cluster, the heads-up display, some of the autonomy features, the advanced safety and technology, that old system wouldn't be able to do that. What we have going on in the new Grand Cherokee is the new Atlantis architecture. That Atlantis architecture is built up based on 3 PDCs. The current Grand Cherokee only has 1. Those are power distribution units that are placed strategically throughout the vehicle, 1 in the engine box, 1 in the mid compartment, and 1 in the rear of the vehicle. And what that does is basically act as a meshed network that allows the system to operate extremely fast and have seamless communication, so we can take advantage of some of these systems such as the Uconnect 5. Our drowsy driver alert system basically spends the first period of time when the operator is driving the vehicle learning what you're doing. It's basically learning what your driving patterns are. If it sees gross deviations from those patterns, it basically then goes to an alert mode. And that alert mode then displays a coffee cup and says, hey, you have the potential of being distracted, and then it assists you in correcting. Night vision, of another very interesting system. That system really consists of an ECU, an electronic control unit, and a camera placed at the front of the vehicle. And that camera basically goes out and takes imagery and basically translates it into heat signatures. If the vehicle senses that obstacle or person or animal is in front of the car, it will identify them as red and put a red box around them. If that person is in proximity to become a potential threat to your path, it will basically put a yellow box around you. Passenger comfort. Well, first and foremost, we think about spaciousness. So we brought in the third row. And upon third row, we wanted to create the best third row experience. First thing is, how do you get in the car? Ingress and egress. The tip and slide seat affords us the opportunity to leave the child seat in. In addition, we allow the second row seat to be slidable, so it can move forward and aft and provide maximum space so a person can get into the car. Comfort isn't always a physical attribute, sometimes it's an emotional attribute. And so you just want to see what's going on. So we have our rear view camera, which will allow you to look in the back of the vehicle and monitor your children, monitor your other occupants, and stay engaged with the whole experience. When you look at the second row also, when you contrast that to a WK, there is actually an extra 2 inches of footroom, in addition to that seat being adjustable. So a lot of attention was paid from the second row back to make sure it's the most awesome experience a person would have.
At the onset of the program, we basically got to go back and rewrite and rebalance the vehicle out in a way that optimized not only the third row being a part of the story, but even our off-road capability got better overall. And so it was really a win-win, but it required us to have the flexibility to have these new components and be able to design them right up, properly up front. So because we had a new engine suspension system to work with, we were able to take a multi-link system and take those multiple bushings and now make each of those bushings mission specific. This bushing's for handling, this bushing's for comfort. And we basically took that formula and we said, okay, this is how we're going to adjust, and everybody will have a mission in life. So with a multi-link system, you have that flexibility to do that. Bolting the axle to the engine allowed us a bunch of advantages. One of them, from an NVH perspective, is we were able to reduce the pass of noise through the body, through the cradles, through the body. So by putting it on the engine, we created a cube, basically of an axle and the engine together, and now we just have to manage that cube through the isolators, through the engine mounts. And what that also did is allowed us to drop the engine in the engine compartment, basically improving our CG. And CG is a very critical factor, attribute when you're talking about dynamics, when you're talking about rollover stability, you're talking about overall feel. We spent a lot of time on fuel economy, right? We did a lot of lightweighting, a lot of aluminum parts in the car, a lot of high-strength steel, Gen 3 steel as well, all in the spirit of getting the car as light as possible. Even the fuel tank is a little smaller in this vehicle than it is in today's car because we just don't burn as much fuel. We have a trail-rated version on the Overland package. Ground clearance basically means a lot in terms of going over those obstacles, so we put a new air suspension system in there. And that new air suspension system basically has more range in there, which means that we also need to accompany the suspension system to go with it. The suspension has more range in it as well, allowing us basically the tools so we can go and balance out ride and handling, but also off-roading. That helped us to achieve a very aggressive approach angle, departure, and breakover angle. So we can stay away from those obstacles. But if we do hit those obstacles, we have skid plates under the car to protect those critical parts as well. There's lots of different tests that we run. We'll take the Jeeps through an array of mud pits. We'll literally get them loaded up underneath in terms of all the suspension components. So we're looking at all the components that have that weight on there, Will they sustain? Will the belly pans be pulled off or not? Water fording, same thing. We're able to increase water fording limit on this car by 4 inches. We'll take the car through 24 inches of water at 5 miles an hour, and again, we're looking for components and how they're performing. The high-speed sand highway test, the dust intrusions, the high heat, these are the types of extreme testing we do. And then, of course, everything in between. And I'm proud to say that car is, when you drive it, it gives you a sense of confidence that you just want to go faster in the corners. The steering is very precise, and we have this formula now that is just, it's really something else.